Okay, good evening everyone, and hello, I'm Rafa Villafuerte Jordá, and I'm going to talk about my work named Difference in How Attitudes Toward Red Deer Are Built in Spain and Sweden. So first of all, I have to say that this work, I did it during my stay at Sweden a few months ago, and it's still in process. And I recommend all of you that, well, it's funny to say that here because many of you from outside, but if you have the opportunity to go and stay during your PhD, if you are doing one, I recommend a lot for improve your network. I am biology, and at this moment I am doing my PhD at the Institute of Forest Science at the INIA, Madrid. And my PhD is trying to study the connections between a high abundance density species like the red deer and so the society and the environment and its management. So for my PhD thesis, I have two parts, an ecological part and a social part. I am going to talk a bit about the social part. So as a background, on Europe, as Miguel said this morning, there is some conflicts about the management. One of these conflicts comes from the growing population of ungulates that is along Europe. And at the same time, there is a decrease of trust in administration. So because of that, to study this, the project where my PhD is on, made a survey in 6 different countries of Europe: United Kingdom, Sweden, Germany, France, Spain, and Italy. So this survey, with a total of 2,400 people surveyed per 400 per country, try to compare abundant and decreasing species, comparing these 8 species. But for my work, I am only use the red deer. So in this survey, we ask about the values, orientations, the worries about wildlife, attitudes toward wildlife, attitudes toward management in general, and some questions about the red deer and the attitude toward red deer. So the objective of my stay, to explain the objective of my stay, I have to explain a bit more about the values, orientation, and other information. The values orientations, as Miguel said this morning, are principal 2 groups: mutualism and dominance, linked to how people see the wildlife. Mutualist people usually see the wildlife in general like humans. Put the wildlife in the same level as human lives, and dominance usually try to take profit in a good way of wildlife. But there is another 2 groups of these values orientation that are created with high values and low values of these ones, the pluralists and distance ones, that can explain sometimes some differences in some countries. But that is not important for what I'm going to talk about. It's only the mutualism and dominance groups. So with these 2 groups of values and the worries toward wildlife and attitudes toward management factors, I tried to explain the attitudes toward red deer in these 6 countries. For that, in the original idea were to compare the governance characteristics of these 6 countries towards these relations, and that is still in process. For example, some governance characteristics will be a tool for management, compensations for landowners, or trust in government. So the 3 objectives that I had were explore if the relation between values and attitudes toward management is the same in all the countries, explore if the correlation between attitudes toward management and the attitudes toward red deer were correlated, and explore if there is a relation between some governance characteristics and the attitudes toward management. That is still in process, as I said. So for that, I follow these 4 steps. First of all, are exploratory factor analysis to create the factors that I will use. Principal component analysis to see that those factors works well. A country government database that is still in process that unifies some data from all these 6 countries, and a multi-group path analysis that show us some results on the connection between these factors. So first of all, I can say that we have similar results as other studies of Europe, where the mutualism, where dominance grows when you go to north. Okay, on the exploratory factor analysis, you can see that I create these factors with the question. These questions are on the squares. For values orientations, I create the 2 factors, dominance and mutualism. For worries toward wildlife, 3 factors. The wildlife, when people were worried about wildlife harming human activities, another were worried about human activities harming wildlife, and another with hunting harming wildlife. When attitudes toward wildlife, I create 1 pro-management, pro-human defense, after problem management, and pro-wildlife defense. And maybe the most important of this group, the factor of attitudes toward red deer, that was dislike red deer, is more or less how much they like the red deer. A higher value indicates more like of this species. So creating this multi-group analysis for all the countries, we can see more or less with this graph that is a bit mess, but the most important part of that is that the positive influence are the green arrows between factors, and the negative influence between factors were the red arrows. That is difficult to explain and to discuss, so I tried to compare different groups of people. So the result that I present here, and I could discuss maybe later, it's the differences between Sweden and Spain on this analysis. These differences that are shown on the screen are the significant ones and can show us how mutualism and dominance on both countries can differ in some aspects in how they build, for example, the after problem management factor. Being in Spain having in Spain a negative influence for mutualist people, and on Sweden a positive influence. Also, how people see the management can influence different in both countries towards how the people see these species. Yeah. So, our tentative conclusions for this work will be that respected results for mutualism and dominance data are normal, that the attitudes toward management doesn't seem to influence the attitudes toward the red deer too much, with all the countries together, without being together can differ a bit. Sweden and Spain seem to have difference in how attitudes toward red deer are built, or my next step, or next step will be find differences between all the countries without interest on the administration or other government's characteristics. Thank you very much for your attention.